2 minutes late.
We're here, finally.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Technical difficulty. And guess what? Mercury is out of the microwave. So we can't blame that poor person.
We can't blame.
I don't
No.
give Mercury any of my time anyway. He tends
Yeah.
to be a
And
late
it's-
messenger.
But we'll give a few minutes so all of our friends know that we're
Okay.
finally here. But hello, Melanie. Thank you for joining.
Hello, Melanie.
We have Megan on with us tonight. Megan's our guest, and we'll be picking Megan's brain about her story and everything she's bringing to tell us. But hopefully you guys have had a good week. I know it's been hotter than hell here in Ohio.
Oh, yeah, we paid. We're still paying.
Yeah.
I heard the news it's supposed to come down to balmy 81 degrees tomorrow. Ooh. Everybody get your winter coats out.
Oh, man. And let me tell you, I tried to be outside this past Saturday for an event, and I did not make it. Like, I had to leave and abandon my poor helper out. I'm like, so sorry, you're gonna get your ass whooped. Because when I got back on 90, I'm like, I'll just go hang out at the craft store in the yarn aisle and try to cool down and everything. And when I got back on the highway, like leading to the event, the bridge and everything was backed up, and 90 was backed up 3 miles from people.
Oh my gosh.
To this event. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I have to say this because I'm getting bugged right now. Grandma is here.
Oh,
I
Grandma.
smell I was like, oh man. I go, you're gonna bug me tonight.
You know why she's there, Maria? Do you know why she's there? Because I'm here and she loves me. Hi, Grandma.
Melanie,
she's here, and I smell one of the things that that patchouli. That's what she's bringing in.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Healer's Corner. This time we have Megan with us, and Megan, you're going to talk with us not only about your story, but the healing through transition, and that's like a loaded title right there.
There's a lot to tell. There's probably more to tell than what we have time for in this limited venue, but there is a lot to cover.
Why don't you tell us about you and why this title applies to you greatly?
Well, let's see. It all really starts, and people aren't going to believe this, and I told my endocrinologists and everybody who helped me through transition my earliest baby memory, and their jaws hit the floor, and it was looking down past my shriveled umbilical cord where it was cut off, and I saw this little thing sticking up down there, and the first words, I swear to gods, that went through my mind were, oh shit. I knew it was going to be a ride right at that moment, and that's pretty much how it ended up being. I grew up as the eldest in the family, so I was the experimental model anyway. And my grandparents spent a lot of time raising me because my parents worked. I remember going to kindergarten is where a lot of socialization takes place, and it's important to know that for people who are trans, that those venues where you first start to rub up against the reality of socialization, social norms, stereotypes, that's when you start to feel like you really don't quite fit into categories. Or you do fit into categories and you're not accepted. And for me, it was very, very difficult period in life. And I think that for most people who are trans, that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. I remember that I did not fit in with any of the boys on the playground at all. I mean, they just kind of shied away from me. Tried to fit into the girls group. You know, they had this wonderful little, they just kind of giggled at the strange person who was trying to join them for unknown reasons. And I ended up spending almost every recess isolated and alone. And that's how it really started. Things like back in the day, it was probably the late 60s when I was in kindergarten, what they used to do is they used to teach you either to bow or curtsy. So the teacher taped a line on the floor. We had to come up and bow or curtsy. And guess what I could do? I could do it really freaking good. I could curtsy. And now she wanted me to bow. And I said, I don't want to bow. And was forced to bow before I could leave the line, but I wanted to curtsy. And I also wanted to play in housewares, and she wouldn't let me do that. And that's when childhood depression kind of entered in, and I started getting a weight problem. So if I was picked on for being different, then the weight issue came in, and the person that I am, Megan, the girl, the woman that I am, kind of got swallowed up in this weight problem, which was, I was picked on for that. And I resurfaced really briefly during 5th grade when all the other girls were getting bumps on their chest, and I was jealous. I don't know why I was jealous, but I was jealous. For 2 years, I was jealous as hell. And then, of course, puberty hit, and that was a wild ride. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Does anybody have any questions about that? Anything? No? Okay.
No, not yet. I was just going to point out, Megan, that I had met you before you went through your transition. And I was horrified that I couldn't remember you as your old identity. Like, I just could not. Like, I recognized your friend who came in. I'm like, oh, yeah. And she's like, in this.
Right, yeah.
And like the look you both had of like, what do you mean? And I'm just going, like, I could
Who
not
is that?
remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just horrified because I could not remember. Then I felt bad that I didn't remember meeting you before, you know. And I'm like,
that was not my real me. I was not, and it kind of is very, very apropos to say that before transition, I was not authentically being who I am. And one of the things that I'd like to speak about is authenticity, or I should say, what do they call that? Counterfeit. Being a counterfeit person as opposed to being a real person, living actually who you are. And how that relates with spirituality is very, very straightforward. You can't really practice an authentic spirituality that is so fully grounded in who you are when you're not who you are, or being who you are. And it took a long time, and it was a long road to get where I am now. One of the things that's really good about transition for people who are allowed to transition, 50% of us that make it and don't end up killing themselves, is that when at that point, when you finally hit that wall where the dysphoria becomes so heavy and so strong, you only have you know that the depression is, you're going to either kill yourself or you have to transition and be who you are, because there's no other option. And a lot of people like to say, well, you've got a choice. Well, yeah, I got a choice. I can either die or I can be who I am. That's my choice. And a lot of people say, oh, you're trans. You chose to be that. This is something that you chose to be. You look to be. Let me tell anybody who's listening, there is nobody in their right mind who would choose to be transgender. You, it, you don't choose to be it. Some people end up running away from the realities, harsh realities of a life, and seek to have an alternate life by trying to find find a panacea in transition. But for the most part, it's something that is really not sought out. But that being said, what I had started to say was, when you finally reach that point where you can peel away the mask completely of who you are not, when all of that falls away, it is like the sun coming in, and all of a sudden you can make the transition to being authentically spiritual too. It is a lot of fear falls away. A lot of there's a lot of change that I don't think most people understand. So, questions or feedback?
I was say, Maria, do you have any questions? Because I think, if I remember correctly, you met Megan when Megan was fully Megan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, do you have questions for Megan?
I have I truly believe that in this life, any kind of sexual orientation, we're all a part of spirit, and we all come here at the same time. It wasn't something that was chosen. The body may not um coincide with the energy and the spirit of it, but I do believe that every single it's been existent since the beginning of time. That's how I see it. It's always been in existence in the beginning of time. I do have a family member, and he's not trans, but he hit the wall when he finally had to authentically accept who he is. He had to, and that was a hard thing for him too. He had to accept who he is, and you go against society, and you go against what society thinks you're supposed to be, because you're in this body, and that's not what he was about. So it was really hard, and I know that when my grandmother was the first one that he said, and he cried, and she's going, why are you crying? This is who you are. So it's something that I truly believe that every single one of us, regardless if you're trans, you're gay, bi, whatever, we all came into this world since the beginning of time. It's the spirit, it's the essence. That's what it is.
And to add on to that, just a couple of things that you had said. I'm very, very Buddhist in a lot of ways, and no birth, no death. There is no beginning, there is no end. And we, each of us, experience the duality of being both male and female through many lifetimes. My personal belief is that we have to experience the reality and the fullness of being in order to reach that wonderful spiritual light where we understand duality. We understand the importance of all that is. We understand where everything truly comes from, which is a point that is completely without gender and without shape, as the Kabbalists would say. They would call it ein. It's a point above the first Sephiroth, Heather, and there's a whole reason that we find ourselves in a world where duality is everywhere around us. It's around us in sexuality. It's around us with light and dark, the sun and the moon. We have roots of the trees below the tops of the trees. We've got duality everywhere. When you start to really look at nature, nature always brings us back to duality as being the heart of being in a lot of ways. And in Kabbalistic circles, the creation of, so you have Kether, Chakma, Bina. Those are the first three emanations on the tree of life. Kether is the crown it's the first circle. If you can think of the tree of life, it's those circles, set out, connected by lines. But Kether, the crown, is considered to be completely gender neutral. It's just considered to be like a point. It's the first realization of being. And that generates Chakma, which is the first circle, second circle on the left. It's the first circle on the left-hand side. Okay? Or I should say the right-hand side, because I'm backwards. So I'm reversing it for everybody out there. So you have Chakma, and that realization, that's considered the I am. It's that moment when reality realizes, when the divine realizes, I am. There's that point. It's also called the image of God looking face to face. And that realization creates Bina and all the other spheres continually, even now. So it's not like it happened in time. Back at that time, it's something that's continual and is always generating reality in every sphere that exists. And it's important to note we have Kether, which is gender neutral. Chakma is the first male emanation, and Bina receives the energy from Chakma. So we have the genitalia, we have the expression of the power of being, and we have the reception of that energy, which is very, if you look at the images, it's sacred. And then it creates both pillars on the tree of life, and one pillar is male and one pillar is female. And I see all the gods and goddesses that we worship as finding their home on the pillars of this great reality. And it kind of jives in with everything that Tibetan Buddhists teach about karma, being able to create all worlds that exist. There's a little writing in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, if anybody wants to go read that. It's a great treatise on the in-between. Yeah, it's a very spiritual thing. There's no way. We like to, as human beings, we like to box everything into little boxes. Well, my spirituality is here, and my work life is here, and my home life is here, and no. Or there's a spirit inside of here. No. Everything is sacred. Spirit, this is spirit. When I see Maria, when I see Melissa, I see spirit. I see the person and the sacred, because everything that exists is sacred.
Yeah.
And a lot of people miss that. And when you try to box things up, that's not seeing reality the way it is. It's not seeing that everything is interrelated. And I think indigenous cultures get that. They
Yes.
understand Hawaiian traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous
Yes.
cultures understand that you can't separate spirituality from
Mm-hmm.
life. You just can't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Indies,
was raised in a society, in a culture where this was acceptable because they see the person as spirit, and all of it, and everything is the spirit, and the healing is part of the spirit, and it's everything that you do, you think, you say, it's all spirit. It's all encased in spirit.
Right.
And I was thankful that I was brought up in that culture. And I just could not understand why people were so like, no, you can't do that, or you can't do that. No, it's a part of
We
spirit.
were feeling
Even
energy.
in nature,
Yeah.
even in nature is natural. You
Right.
know, it's completely natural. You know,
Native Americans understood that.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people don't understand. And Melissa, you know this too. I mean, you told this to clients, many people who walked into Goddess Elite, and it's a basic truth. If your spirit is sick, it's going to show up in the body. And if the body is sick, it's going to show up in the spirit. The two are connected. It just is that way. And a lot of times, if you're looking for physical healing, start looking at your spirit and seeing what needs to be worked on in your spirit, and your body will follow a lot of times.
So we have our first question in here. She's like, remember we spoke about auras. Do auras have gender?
No. No.
No, auras really don't have gender. Auras, when I read auras and I look at auras and read them, it's an expression of your life force. Okay? It's an expression that extends beyond the body. It's like it's just that. Okay? But I don't perceive gender in aura per se. No.
Now, Megan, refresh my memory. Were you doing readings before your transition?
Oh gosh. No. Well, I messed around. I had geez. I had this one great reading. I went to I used to go and visit my grandmother in the hills of Pennsylvania to get away from everybody, and I remember doing a tarot card spread there that kind of was a foreshadowing of me becoming this. and I remember having the reading a long time ago when I was a kid that kind of pointed towards it. But yeah, I've always been drawn. I know I came into this life when I was 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old. I could pull energy through music, through the harmony in music, and the happiness that brought. I could. I mean, my hands were tingling. I could express energy with my hands, and that was one of the main triggers that I had for realizing that energy. And the house that I grew up in, my parents were hippies. Yay! And they had a tarot deck in the house. And I must have been 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old, and I kind of really gravitated towards that deck. It was like something that I knew what it was. And I could tell a humorous story about Spirit Board if anybody wants to hear it. It's really humorous.
Well, let me follow up real quick, because when you said earlier that your spirituality right, isn't authentic, and it kind of suffers if you're not living your true self. Like, how would you feel then, or how do you feel that your readings were before you transitioned versus after? Do you feel like they got stronger and better, or just were you just more
Oh, the readings, as far as the readings go, the readings, it's kind of like Maria, the readings are of spirit. Um, my spirit was always there, hidden below the surface. She was always there, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was, uh, well, as I was going through the years, I remember going through this period of self-expression in college, and I painted this picture of this huddled up woman in a corner and this big mask with black eyes in back of her, all in blacks and grays. And I had dreams about her. And the last dream that I had before I really came to this reality was, I dreamed about being at a high school reunion, and I saw her in the crowd. This woman, black hair, grays, gray, dirty, like she'd been living under a bridge, completely unkept. And she turned her head and looked at me with the saddest eyes, and she took her dress off. It just went completely nude. She wanted to say, "Look at me, see me." And it just happened to be the night before therapy. I was in therapy at the time, and I was driving, and it just hit me. 2 words, like, "She's me. That's me." And it was like a door opened and the dust settled. It was like out of Lord of the Rings, This door opened and a light shone through and the dust settled. And that was like the moment in my life that really brought me to myself, when I realized that she was there all the time. A little emotional.
So
Oh,
I have a question. So that woman that you saw, was that, you say, is a part of you, or
that was the part of me.
was
That
it
was,
a
oh, go ahead.
guide? Was it a guide that was detouring you to do some kind of healing, to go in and just do some kind of reading? I learned that when I finally embraced and went into the healing, I end up healing myself too. So is that something that you end up doing also, when you embraced it and went into the reading, went into feeling the
I,
vibration of the
I,
energy?
I really believe that was the awareness of myself that I lost in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
The awareness, she got buried so deep, um, through years of bullying and years of just not quite fitting, and years of that. In that instant, that she finally just that I became me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
That the mask that I was wearing came off for good. I went through a couple of very bad years after that where I wanted to transition and family did not quite understand. And I that's when I reached the point where I said, I have to be who I am, and I have to transition and be who I am. But that moment, I remember I was living alone at the time, and I'd separated with the person I was with, and I had never in in the 45, 50 years I'd been on the planet, whenever I looked in the mirror, I just wasn't comfortable with who was looking back. for those entire 45, 50 years. And I came back from therapy, and the therapist said, start feeding her, start working with her, love her, start giving her life. And I walked downstairs and I turned on the light and I looked in the mirror and I smiled. And that was coming home. For the first time in my life, I saw me.
Now to lighten the mood a little bit,
it was
Megan,
very powerful. It was
you
very powerful.
a really good Velma for Halloween every year. So, does she look like Velma?
I do look like a Velma. Yeah.
And you are a Scooby-Doo fanatic, so it's only fitting that you.
Yeah.
Chair has another question. Well, she wants to remind us that you were going to tell a funny story about a Ouija board.
Oh yeah, it's very good. Do you want to hear that story now? Okay.
Sure.
I can do the. Okay, so you know how Milton Bradley sold these things, and continues to sell them. It's child's toy, good for any child 8 and up. And we can't sell alcohol to people who are 20 or up, but we can tell them to go communicate to the God. That's like. So we had a Ouija board in the house, and I liked it. I mean, I gravitated straight towards the Ouija board too. And it worked, and things were okay with it. And my mom had decided, I must have been around 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old. And she decided that we are not going to have the Ouija board in the house. The house, it's not good for the house, and it's bringing spirit in and things she doesn't want in the house. And well, so she took this thing and she threw it in the trash. And here I am. I'm getting ready to walk to school, go out the door, and unfortunately, she left it on the top of the trash pile. And I saw it sitting there with the planchette and looking so lonesome and everything. So I took it and I put it inside the hall closet in the top. Now, she didn't know this. She thought she threw it out. And so a couple weeks go by, she goes into the hall closet, and there she screams. There's the Ouija board. It came out of the trash, made its way back into the house. And I never told her I brought it in. So that's a pretty funny Ouija board story for anybody who wants to do that kind of a thing. It's fun.
I feel like you should have thrown the years, kept buying a Ouija board and just randomly leave them in the house every so often. So every time she thought it would just appear back.
Oh God.
I read a story online where somebody did something similar, but it was the Amityville horror book. And
that would do it. That would do it. Yeah, that would do it.
And like the son or whatever kept getting copies and like leaving them randomly in the book. He would like purposely mess it up so it wouldn't look brand new, and then like go stash it.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I would do. just because. Now, if any of our friends who are here watching and listening, if you have questions for Megan, be it about like transitioning, spirituality with transitioning, or even maybe a little bit of magic work, because Megan, you are also a practitioner.
Yes, I am.
Feel free to ask, and we'll bring that bus right up to Megan. We won't run her over with it, but we'll pull it up so she can answer it.
Okay. Just want to bring to the fore that for any of you who have friends or family who are some of the warning signs that you can look for if they're questioning, um, do they become withdrawn? Do they become quiet? Do they stop communicating? Depression will creep in. Um, and they'll even stop, participating in a lot of family things. They just quite don't seem to fit into family stuff. Those are all kind of signs that something's going on. That it might be a good idea to just say, "Hey, are you okay? What's going on with you?" At the time when this hit me in my childhood, it had to be 1960, 67. And at that time, there was really not a lot of anything going on for people who are transgender, let alone gay or lesbian, and or any LGBTQ expression. Uh, so there was nothing in place. There was no support structure in place or anything for me to even kind of pinpoint what was going on. I just kind of found refuge in books. I read every book in the library and was a loner. And so look for that, you know.
Would you say the opposite of that could also be true? Like the over trying to fit in, the over, because you and I both know a common person,
Yeah.
and they threw themselves so hard into trying to be male. Like they would cross that line into like the
Oh, geez.
chauvinistic and everything, just trying so
Oh, geez.
and running in those groups of people who were that over masculine, toxic masculine, just trying to finally feel it. So,
One of the things that happened, we didn't talk about it, but one of the things that happened in puberty was, and it's, sometimes difficult to talk about, but I remember the very first time I masturbated, and it was kind of like, I'm a guy now. I'm a guy. And the equation that masculinity is equated with the sex act, I think, is a real problematic kind of a thing, because, or the vice versa for women too, who are because that could happen with women as well. That your genitalia do not necessarily dictate who or what you really are in a deeper sense. And I'd like to really point out for those who are listening, who are kind of disgusted at this point and are tired of transgender people in general, that there is a difference between gender identity and gender attraction. So, gender identity is how a person feels about their own gender, what their own gender expression is. Attraction is simply the sex or the person that person is attracted to. And it doesn't mean that if you're transgender, you're attracted to women, that you're going to go into. Actually, it means if for people who are authentically transgender, unless you're lesbian too, it doesn't mean that you're looking at getting into a bathroom and wanting to. You simply want to be where you belong. And I think that fear is really not well placed. I mean, you can end up going into a women's room and having lesbians go in who are attracted to women, or seeing women in a women's restroom or locker room or whatever. And you can have the same thing with gay men going into a locker room, seeing men or a restroom, and it just makes no sense, the fears that we have in today's society. If you want to get really up to it, that's where you should be kind of like, well, not this fear of transgender people. And there's a difference, and I think that and I'm probably going to get in lots of trouble for saying this, but there's a real difference between somebody who is genuinely transgender, who has dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is what it's called. Literally being wired as the opposite of the sex that you were born with. It's terrible. It's called gender dysphoria, and but it's different than cross-dressing. It's different than drag queen dressing. It's different than any of those kinds of expressions that one would find in the LGBT community. There's a place for them, and there's a place that they can be, and everybody can be happy together. But I think that the general public sometimes latches on to all of that. When I transitioned, I simply wanted to disappear. I said I wanted to blend in. So nobody could look at me and say, oh, look, there goes, guy dressed as a gal. That's not a woman. But so that's completely the opposite. So I just wanted to point that out. And then there's, that's me personally. But of all the wonderful expressions there are in the human race, I think that it's important to point out that even a lot of the cultures, some of the cultures that are around, the early cultures, considered us to be those who walk between worlds, because we are, I think we talked about this in Baphomet, and how we express almost both genders, and we can see the worlds from both sides, which is a unique perspective, especially for those who are born, intersexed, or So anyway,
We have a question that says, in the
please.
spiritual world, what is the most noticeable difference since transitioning, or has it generally remained the same either way?
Repeat that first. The spiritual world.
Yeah, in the spiritual world, what is the most noticeable difference since transitioning?
For me, it is this connection to endless spirit, love, and peace. It's this, I don't know how to put it into words. It's like being able to see clearly, in a lot of ways for the first time. It's being able to be who you are with no fear. As I said, when you get to the point where you peel away the layers of the onion and you transition, it's very easy to take those things like spiritualities or dogmas that you grew up with to just illustrate. I was Roman Catholic, went from Roman Catholicism to Eastern Orthodox, went from Eastern Orthodox to Episcopalian, went from Episcopalian to Unitarian Universalist, and that was my springboard, really, for starting to really explore my Buddhist roots, explore Taoism, a lot of the things that I had been brought up with as a child. We can get into that, it's another time, but I was brought up with a lot of Eastern mysticism in my childhood, and I knew everything had to fit together, and in those years, really helped to springboard me towards being who I am and practicing an authentic spirituality. And then came transition, and when transition hit, I was any of the dogmatic remnants that might have been in my life just disappeared. Uh, really just went away. And one of the reasons I love Wicca so much is our only priest, and I'm not like being, somebody who's advocating go out and become Wiccan. But all we say is, and it harm none, do whatever you want. So you're not limited in what you want to practice for yourself, the deities that you are called to. I mean, I have Hindu deities and I have Hawaiian deities. Pele loves me. That connection to Pele Maria, that's still strong. I'm gonna Katesvaru, the Japanese Shinto deity, and so many other deities that I love and aspects of the divine that call to me. I can work. They work through. I can work with them. They can work through me. But I realize, because of the connections on that tree of life, that these are all expressions of the ultimate divine, which is so far beyond our imagining. That that's the place where the Jews said, if you saw the face of God, you'd cease to be. And that's like nirvana. To tell you the truth, it's the same place that Buddhists go when they enter nirvana. It's a complete absence of self. So, at all? Does that answer the question?
I think so.
I think so. So going to the spiritual aspect of it, the Buddha and Hindu, and following what resonate with you as far as, any kind of structured, I call them structured, and some of them I do take aspects from different ones too. I'm like you, I do take aspects, this resonate with me, I can throw out the rest. So that kind of help you also going through the transition when you finally said, Catholic doesn't work for me. I was born into Catholic, but it doesn't work for me. This works for me. So that kind of help you get to
It
the
was
springboard of where you.
spirituality at that point was kind of secondary. I have to
Okay.
admit, the emotional. What happened was, I had discovered this side of myself, and I had gone to the person I was with at the time, and this person was a little bit lesbian, and I'd like, still exploring who I'd like to be with, and I know she didn't like being with guys, and I came to the house and I said, well, guess what, hon, I'm transgender, I'm not. And she basically said, well, if I absolutely wanted to be with a woman, I wouldn't have been with you. And I had a bracelet that I had on at that time, which I tore off and threw in the trash. I went into a very, very dark place. I started drinking very badly, damaging my liver down to drinking. I used to put on this woman CD in the car, which was the only place where I was alone. And I used to cry, and I used to sing it at the top of my lungs, and I used to cry and dream about driving the car into the, concrete pylons. And the person that I reverted to was neither male nor female. It was just like the shell of an empty and then being that had no person that was like not authentically anybody at all. It was a very bad place to be in. And I remember, and it was kind of like more guyish. It was more male because I kind of felt that I had been told that she didn't want to be with a woman. And I remember getting a divorce and then waking up one day. I was still going to therapy at this point, and I remember getting to therapy, walking through the doors, sitting down. This is just going to be a normal therapy session, and I just broke. I sobbed my eyes out. I had finally hit the wall, and it's the wall. We call it the wall. It's the realization that the behaviors, the drinking, and the depression, and thinking about suicide, you either have to transition and be who you are, or you're just not going to make it. And I want to have my kids to live for, and so many people in my life that I love. And I made the decision to transition. I thought, my family were hippies; they'll be good with this and everything. Well, they weren't. I lost my birth family for 4 years. But I had to be who I am. I kept saying, "Oh, you chose to be this," and it was like, you just don't understand. You don't get it. It's not a choosing. It's just not a choosing. You either have to transition, or it becomes so bad and so painful that not being able to be who you are. And for anybody who's cisgender out there, which is the natural gender that you woke up with this morning or were born with, imagine waking up one day and all of a sudden being called Bob if you're Shirley, or being called the opposite of who you are and being treated the opposite and having to use the opposite restroom that you were born to use, and being forced to conform. Try that for a day. For anybody who's cisgendered, who thinks that they know what this is all about and that it's an option, you try doing that, not just for a week or a day or a few days. Try it for try it for a good year. Try it for a good 20 years. And you'll begin to get some inkling of what somebody who is truly transgender and experiences gender dysphoria goes through. It's You're not ever allowed to be who you are. And my choosing to be who I am, yeah, I made a choice, but it was the only choice I could make. Or I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Just waiting to see if we have any questions. I think everybody's just listening to your story, Megan. As our friends get quiet, like in-depth topics, they're just like, tell more.
Tell more.
Well, we're already at like an hour, so
Yeah, so we should probably start wrapping. But let me look at my notes and see if there was anything. And I guess one of the questions that you could ask is, if you really love somebody enough, would you love them enough to be free and to be who they are? That's the question. Love should not be controlling. Love should be freeing. And if you truly love somebody, my last words, for the audience is, if you truly love somebody, and love is really the core of spirituality. If you truly love somebody, let them be who they are. Anyway, lovely being with everybody. I enjoyed this hour tremendously.
No, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and being able to talk openly about it and what you went through. as you've been talking, I've been thinking, I'm like, do I know more than two? You know, I'm like, at least not to my knowledge, right? Which, not that I really care, but because of the topic, and I'm like, who else do I know? Um, no, I'm like, I think I only know two. Um,
Well,
but that other person was somebody very close to me at that time, and I had a whole different experience with that one versus like, hi, my name's Megan. And I'm like, all right, come on in, Megan, let's go.
I will say, working at the store and everything, you may not be aware, we have a lot of people from the community, the LGBT community, who get frequent goddess elite. They find a home here at our store. And
Cool.
Mhm.
I'm really grateful to all of you out there. Um, come on in, make it a home. It's a safe place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only people were like, ugh, is like those that come in being a jerk.
Yeah.
That's who we have
Yeah,
a problem with.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Um, you know,
yeah,
just don't be a jerk. Otherwise, we don't care who
yeah,
or what or
yeah, yeah,
it's come do
Mhm.
you.
yeah.
Um,
Don't be counterfeit. Be
yeah,
Yeah.
real.
it's like I perfectly understand if you were having a bad day before you got here, but don't put your bad day on those of us working or other customers in the store. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure you will find a sympathetic ear somewhere in there, but just don't come in, you know, being a jerk of any sort.
and on the other hand, you may be surprised. You might come in and you might find some healing. We have some
Yep.
great healers on staff, right, Maria?
Well, I mean, there are people who will purposely come in after work, like they did have that bad day at work, and they're like, I just needed to come stand in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. They do. They
Yeah.
do. Yeah, they do. Yeah,
And then I might
they
joke, I'm
do.
like, well, if you stand too long, I might hand you a box of something to put away while you're
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Kind of a shipment in. Like, help us put it out, would you?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I we welcome anybody in the community, and who or whatever you may be, or I don't care. Like, I do not care
Mm,
all of that person, because it's just you, and I'm not keeping
Mhm.
tally. I don't
Yeah.
care. You came in because you need
Yeah.
what? Okay.
yeah.
um
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Mm.
do you I go,
I'm just so grateful that I was brought up in a culture where this was acceptable. I'm so grateful that
Yes.
I was brought up
Yes.
that way, and I do have a few in my family.
Yeah.
So I was just so grateful that I was not brought up where there's a certain standard you have to be, or you look down upon,
Yeah.
and the the people that I had most fun with when I used to work in Hawaii. I used to be a manager in one of the assistant manager in one of the store. The best customers were the LB. You know, they
GBTQ.
were great. They were
Yeah.
fun. They come in the
They're
store,
fun.
and
They're fun. They're authentic.
if you're having a bad day, they make you laugh because they just say it like it is.
Yeah, they've reached the. I'll use a little expletive here. If you really want a truly freeing experience, reach the age of I don't give a fuck. I did say that on public TV, and I apologize. You might have to edit that
well,
out.
I'm gonna have to edit that part out,
You're
maybe.
gonna have to edit
Yeah.
that out. Reach the age of I don't care.
Here we go.
Yes. Yes.
Reach
You
the
get to
age of
that
I don't
age.
care, and that's very freeing when
Hmm.
you don't care what anybody thinks, you don't care what anybody says, you don't care what they say about
Yep.
you, about who you hang out with, what you eat, who you're going out with. house you have, a
And
car you drive.
I
Yeah,
like talking to them because they have this because of what they
yeah,
have gone through,
yeah.
what they have gone through, and they still have a lot of passion of life, and they come in there with this. I give them a lot of credit because that's confidence right there. That's strength, you know. I
Hmm.
mean, to just say, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I do not care. You know,
Right.
that is a
Yeah,
lot of strength.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I'm gonna point this out. If you, to any of you who do have somebody who's transgender, who's going through transition, listen, transition isn't hard. It's not the transition that's hard. We're finally allowed to be who we are. Transition isn't hard. Grant, Granted, there may be some issues figuring out style and clothing that goes with other pieces, and it's style. I mean, because it can be really confusing for cisgendered women. You have, the Vermont look, you've got the California look, you've got the East Coast, Maine look, you've got the Canadian look, you got the Florida look, you got all of these styles. Guys, you just go throw on a t-shirt, jeans, sweats, and tennis shoes, and you're set. You guys got it easy. But for people who are in transition, the most difficult part about transition is just figuring out what your look is. What, who am I, and what look looks best with who am I? What look is the best for me? So many different, but that doesn't even take into account body shapes. So that's the most difficult part about transition. But for those people in your life who are transitioning, they're finally allowed to be free. And
Hmm.
they're going to take that freedom. They're going to run like a horse at a racetrack. I mean, they've finally been kept in check for years, and they are finally full of joy and happiness at being able to be who they are. The worst thing you can do is rain on it and say, you know, this is the wrong thing to do, or this is not. The moment you see somebody living authentically who they are, it's kind of like, wow, now I understand why you were so miserable. Oh,
I mean, I'm going to admit, you just named off a bunch of fashion styles that I've never heard of.
oh God.
Where was I when all of that?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Uh, there are all these fashion styles and Vogue fashion styles.
I
We
mean,
haven't you haven't even gotten to Europe, for God's sake. I mean,
I like my easy middle age. I still fall into the goth category, but you
right,
know,
but that's still a comfortable category. That's still you.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
authentically you.
um, uh, my
So
only complaint is like you can't wear faded black with new black, so that is a
no,
no.
that's true. And there's shades of gray that don't go with other shades of gray.
That's right.
That's true.
Uh,
That's
and let me
very,
tell
very
you,
true.
the misery of looking in an all black closet or drawer or the basket of laundry and it's all black and you're trying to find that one damn shirt and you oh, um, so yeah, that is the hardship of my fashion. There.
That's
Staying out
funny.
of the sun,
That's funny. That's funny.
but well,
I
thank you.
Mm.
grew up with t-shirt. I grew up with t-shirts and shorts and slipper.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Slippers.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Didn't really use shoes until I got here because of snow.
it's
I still want to
interesting
know
you
why
should
you
it's
are still in
interesting
Ohio.
you should say that. All of my son's aides are Nepalese, and they get over here and they're walking around either in their bare feet or flip-flops in the snow.
I
So
can't.
yeah,
I can't do cold.
they just shoes do not seem to be categorically something that belongs to their wardrobe. I just but,
But Well, thank you, Megan, for joining us. Do you have any last minute questions? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. So I think we should do, I'm going to edit this part out right here, but since I have you, Megan,
Mhm.
I think we should do a whole episode on Baphomet, because when you were mentioning that top sphere,
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
how it's
yeah.
androgynous, and I'm like, well, so is Baphomet. So how does Baphomet
Mm.
fit up in there? And
Yeah, we need to do that too for anyone who's
Poor
interested.
Baphomet. Poor Baphomet is so
Yeah.
misunderstood. Hollywood did a number on Baphomet,
it's not
and
Yeah, but that's Hollywood. I don't pay
yeah,
attention
well,
to Hollywood.
Baphomet is in actuality a magical image. There are some roots in Eastern Indian culture. There are some roots that are kind of there, but they're not there. Baphomet really became who Baphomet is with, I think it was Israel Regard when he developed Baphomet as an image for magical use, for accessing energy, for understanding that the heart of energy, the rise of energy, is kind of like at the paradoxical point between opposites.
Mhm.
So anyway, we could get into that another day.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like that would be a really
Yeah,
good, interesting topic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
poor Baphomet. I mean, still, so many people will come into the store and they'll see one of the statues or the bust, and they're like, "Oh, you got satanic stuff here," and I'm like, first of
Yeah,
all,
I know. And I said, no, it's not.
I need you to read outside of your one book, um, to educate.
Yeah.
Or outside of Hollywood.
Yeah,
Outside of Hollywood.
yeah.
It's
And
very
Megan,
hard because there's so much that's conjecture, and it's so hard to sift fact from fiction now because the internet is ripe with 70% on anti-Baphomet, and there is just so much. And to be totally honest, people will believe what people will believe, regardless of what teaching is sometimes, because they believe it, and for them, their reality is that belief. So
well, they've already
they'll
got their
never
mind
need
made up. So
HC will never be any more than that. So I don't know.
Mm.
yeah, so I think we'll have to plan that episode and get into it. And uh, hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Like, hey, we're getting ready to hop off, but thanks for joining.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
um, we're gonna have to get a hold of some of more of Paul's pictures, and I know you sent me one earlier. He's got some ghostesses running around in his place of business, so we'll have to show some of those on our Wednesday morning ghost talks and
Uh,
get back into it. But thank you guys for joining us for another episode here, and thank you, Megan, for sharing your story and letting us in on your life there that you've been through to get to where you are
Yeah.
now. And
absolutely.
yeah, and hopefully you guys can
Absolutely.
join us for our next time around. But
Yep.
have a good night, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Oh, now he's like, wait.